We have a Black Friday battle between two of the top three teams in the NFC, Eagles, Bears. We'll preview it coming up next, right here on Crossover Thursday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Bears your first listen each and every day. And thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network now the #1 sports podcast network. Crossover Thursdays presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. I'm Louie DiBiase, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast. He's Lorin Cox, host of Locked On Bears. And Lorin, this is a huge matchup for seeding in the NFC. Again, two of the top three teams in this conference. The Bears in the lead in the NFC North, which is a stacked division right now. The Eagles, even though they blew it against the Dallas Cowboys last Sunday, and I think that's an understatement, still well in command of the NFC East and could wrap it up within the next few weeks. But I'm curious for you, from the Bears' perspective, the storyline for Chicago. For me, it's like, who is this football team? They kind of give me some 2022 New York Giants vibes where they just find a way at the end to keep winning games. But at the same time, I think they have a lot of things on that roster that tell me they're not the mirage that Giants team was. Like, who is this Bears team to you?
Yeah, that's definitely the bigger picture, especially I think outside biggest storyline around this. Yeah. I think day-to-day, week-to-week, teams not so worried about like, are they for real or not? They're just going to keep winning games and enjoying it, right? And say we beat the team on the schedule and the wins, they count. It's hard to go 8-1 in your last 9 games, no matter how you do it.
Right.
So they'll take that wherever they can. But I do think there's a certain understanding and knowledge of like, hey, yeah, they have kind of pulled these out by the skin of their teeth and like kind of out of nowhere. And you've sweated a lot of these games as roller coaster type games. And like, there's an understanding that the Bears are not as consistent or as good as, say, like a Philadelphia Eagles team is bigger picture. Now, that doesn't mean they don't think they can still win this game, because in the NFL right now, we're seeing on any given Sunday, that the Eagles can blow a 21-point lead just easily enough. So, but like, I think if the Bears and the Eagles played 10 times, I would take the Eagles, winning the majority of those matchups. But I think in a game like this, the Bears feel like they're feisty enough that in any given game they can win, and that Philadelphia has enough flaws that, hey, if things go Chicago's way, they can hold on and win this.
Hey, man, that's why the NFL's fun. This is not a 7-game series, right? It's single elimination in the playoffs, and that stupid term, but it's true. Any given Sunday, or in this case, any given Friday, Chicago could pull it out. And I saw a crazy stat. They've won 5 or 6 games with a game-winning drive under 2 minutes to go. It's unbelievable that they keep finding ways. But you could also make the argument, like, good teams find ways to win and bad teams find ways to lose. I think these two teams, like you talk about storylines, they are two of the best fourth quarter teams in football. Like, Lorin, the Eagles have not been consistent really either, especially on offense. They haven't really put together 4-quarter performances all year, but kind of like Chicago, they've also made the plays to win the game at the end instead of to blow it. And I think that's going to be, if this is a close game in the fourth quarter, that's going to make this really interesting.
Yeah, the clutch aspect of these teams are fun, but then like, if they're both struggling throughout the game, like, is that going to keep it close the whole time, or is there one team that can like finally put it together while the other team is struggling? Say, oh, hey, this is nice when the other team is handing us some opportunities here, because for the most part, it felt like, at least from Chicago's perspective, that the Bears will have a turnover or two, early in the game that keeps the other team in it, even when maybe the Bears start hot and then kind of struggle a little bit, and the defense gives up some points, and all of a sudden it's like it's just messy, and they can't get out of their own way more often than it's like it's not like necessarily like other teams, they figure something out. It's more like Bears have some penalties, Bears have a turnover, Bears make some kind of mistake here, they blow a coverage or whatever it might be, that then make it too easy on the opponent. And I think amid this winning streak, it's felt like, well, that works against the Bengals and the Saints, but that shouldn't work against the Philadelphia Eagles in theory, unless the Eagles find a way to blow it too.
Well, that's the thing is the Eagles defense has put together complete performances all year, and they've been bailing out this offense, which is frustrating because all the star proven veterans are on the other side of the ball. But the offense has done the same thing, Lorin, as Chicago, where like you look at that Cowboys game, they had 14 penalties in that matchup. They had 2 key turnovers with under 6 minutes to go when the game was tied up at 21. Like the offense gave that game away. There's been too many instances this year where an offense that has Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, supposedly a great offensive line, they just have entire halves where they cannot move the football. So, yeah, it is great to see these teams are able to close it out in close games. Like, you need to be able to do that come crunch time, come playoff time. But you would wish that they made it a little bit easier on themselves. I think that's the same thing for the Eagles. They're still trying to find their way, the answer to putting together a complete game. And outside of like 2 performances this year, it just hasn't happened.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Eagles fans critical of the offensive coordinator, Patullo. I've seen some maybe wondering
big storyline. Yeah.
If he loses this game, could he be potentially fired? Which seems like a little bit extreme to me. But then I saw Greg Cosell from NFL Films just said, there was a quote, he said their pass game concepts are very rudimentary and elementary for the most part. Somebody said it's like a 9th grade passing game. Like, does that feel like it's at the core of the problems for Philadelphia when there's so much talent there? You would think that, like, or the other explanations you see as to like why that hasn't clicked enough.
I completely agree with that, and that's been the problem as to why they've been so inconsistent. Is the run game has not been there at all season long. So they haven't been able to find easy yardage. That's why they have sometimes, you look at the second half against the Rams, they were dominant. You look at the first half against Tampa Bay and Denver, the offense was dominant. But then you look at the second half of those games, or in the LA game, it was the first half, they completely disappear because they don't find easy yards very well. The run game doesn't work, and Kevin Patullo, the offensive coordinator, has really struggled to scheme up easy yards through the passing game. So they're playing behind the sticks all of the time, it feels like, on second and third down, and that's not the way this team is built on the offensive side of the football. So I agree with that, but no, like I don't think they'll make a change this year in season. I think that would cause a sense of panic, and at 8-3, I think it could do more harm than good. But in the offseason, you can have that conversation that, they absolutely need a new play caller. Whereas for the Bears, like I don't think that's not one of the issues for that football team.
No, I mean they're feeling very good about, first year of a coaching staff and having some growing pains within there, but that everything is trending in the right direction. Because I think they've had a little bit of that occasional run game issue too. They started out running the ball very poorly. They figured it out at the bye week, but then there's just times when there's not been a lot of criticism for Ben Johnson because he's done such a great job, and like no one is complaining about Ben Johnson. But if you want to nitpick and have something to be upset's maybe even too strong a word, is he does get away from the running game sometimes more than you would like. And I think that's one of the things the Bears have struggled with. And I'm guessing Philadelphia has experienced this similarly, like where you might get a lead on a team and it's like, all right, this is a great time to have a 12-play drive where you just slow it down. Can you hand it off 8 times and chew 6 minutes off the clock and just kind of take control of the tempo of the game and kind of not necessarily put the opponent away from a scoring standpoint, but just like really keep their offense on the sideline to help your defense and just kind of like take like momentum control of the game. And the Bears haven't really been able to like do that even when they start strong and get a lead and feel like they're building on something, then they're the team that slows down and lets the opponent back into it. And that's like one of the key areas that I think Bears fans are still looking for this team to kind of take that step to go from pretty good to like, oh no, this is a good team.
It's so funny how it's so similar for both of these football teams. What's holding them back, but what's also winning them games, because the Eagles last year were the best team in football closing games out, like you're talking about. I mean, there was a moment in that Steelers game last season where they had a 10-minute drive. Like they killed almost an entire quarter of clock. And because the offensive line's been so banged up and inconsistent this year and the run game hasn't been there, even like I'm not going to lie, watching that Cowboys game last week when it was 21-0, I didn't think it was safe because the passing game is so Jekyll and Hyde. They're not the consistent area of that offense. So that could be what this game comes down to, really, is who plays more consistent football. And if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, like Lorin, I think before we get into matchups, it's all about the turnovers. Chicago is like the best team in the league at forcing turnovers on defense, and the Eagles offense outside of last week has been the best team at not giving the football away. So that's a strength-on-strength battle that's going to be key.
Yeah, and last week the Bears started to be a little bit more turnover prone on offense than they had been most of the season. had gone 3 straight games without one, and then Caleb Williams gets strip sack in the end zone, and DeAndre Swift has a rare fumble. So I think both these teams are kind of like they've been trending in one strong direction. And last week, now we're both looking to say, okay, is this going to continue, or was that kind of a one-game fluke of them turning in the negative direction?
Eagles, Bears, Black Friday. We'll get into matchups to watch. Coming up next, Crossover Thursday, Locked On Eagles and Locked On Bears. Today's episode of Locked On Eagles and Locked On Bears, Crossover Thursday, is presented by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game, want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel's live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a much bigger payout. The other day, I took a 3-leg parlay. The big three in LA, the Los Angeles Lakers, LeBron James, Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic, won big on FanDuel. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Continuing on, Crossover Thursday, Locked On Eagles, Locked On Bears. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network now the #1 sports podcast network. Lorin, let's talk matchups here. This is going to be, I think, a close game on Black Friday. And for me, like, the matchup I'm watching the most is kind of what I was alluding to at the end of segment 1, is the Eagles' offense against the Bears' defense. It's strength on strength. The Eagles are so good at not giving the football away. That's how they've been winning games this year. Whereas I feel like the Bears, I mean, they have 3 guys with at least 4 interceptions this year. They have 2 players tied for the league in picks at 5, and one of them's got 4, Tremaine Edmonds. Former Eagle Kevin Byard has 5 picks this year as well. So I think that's going to be the key matchup, watching specifically that Chicago Bears second and third level of the defense against Jalen Hurts in the passing game.
And that's where I have some concern for Chicago in this matchup because, first of all, everyone talks about how turnovers aren't sustainable, and that's absolutely true. I mean, getting 3 or 4 a game is not sustainable. You can get 1 or 2 every once in a while consistently, but the big numbers are not sustainable. But also, I think a lot of this has come from the Bears playing below average quarterbacks. And there's a lot of quarterback injuries and stuff. Like, I don't think the Bears will have had like a uniquely weak quarterback schedule because every team's been having to play a lot of bad quarterbacks. But the point being, Jalen Hurts is not one of them, right? Like, they've gotten turnovers off Mason Rudolph and JJ McCarthy and Joe Flacco and Tyler Shuck and, Geno Smith. But like, Jalen Hurts is not going to put the ball into harm's way as much as some of those other quarterbacks. Like, I don't think the Bears defensive backs have been, quote unquote, lucky per se. Like, they've done a good job of being in the right place at the right time. Like, it's not just like a tip pass they come down with. Like, there's good skill behind it, but only because a quarterback still puts it in a spot where they have a chance to use that skill to go get it. And I'm not as certain that Jalen Hurts is going to give them those same opportunities. And I'm more concerned that Jalen Hurts is going to be able to take better advantage of some of the injuries the Bears are dealing with on their defense. They should be a little healthier at cornerback for this game, but their top 3 linebackers are all not practicing on the injury report. They didn't have any of them last week against the Steelers. And the Steelers, their offense, they just kept throwing it short and trying to do yards after catch, which worked fine for backup linebackers to just step up and tackle. I'm really worried about Dallas Goedert working vertical up the seam or any of those sort of like deeper crossing routes that are going to ask these linebackers to turn and run with someone, because the Steelers didn't really press them on it at all last week. And I think the Eagles will be a lot better at challenging backups and special teams players to cover high quality weapons.
Man, you'd think, right? I mean, the deep crossers would be perfect in that matchup. Kevin Patullo just does not use that as part of the offense. That's the one problem, Lorin. Like, you're so right. That's the matchup to exploit. I would put A.J. Brown in the slot at times, try to get him over the middle of the field. It just does not happen with this offense. So the Bears might get away with that. Jalen Hurts is not really a guy that likes to target the middle of the field. Kevin Patullo has not done a great job at drawing those kind of concepts up this year, but they should do that against Chicago. That's honestly been my knock with Jalen, is he's almost been too turnover free, where he's afraid to take risks and play aggressive. There's a middle ground between playing scared and playing reckless, right? And I think Jalen's gone a little bit too far on the safe side. But with this game, I've been on him all year about that, but I probably would be okay with that approach against Chicago. Like, use the middle of the field, run after the catchability, get it in the hands of guys like Dallas Goedert, especially Devontae Smith doesn't play. He did not practice again today, dealing with a couple different injuries and an illness. But I don't know if it's going to happen. I've lost a lot of faith in this offensive game plan, so that'll be something to watch.
Yeah, and it's going to be an interesting contrast there of like not trusting Kevin Patullo versus like really trusting Vic Fangio on the other side against Ben Johnson. Like that coach matchup to me is so fascinating because I was looking back through. I don't believe Fangio has coached and called plays in a game against Ben Johnson where Ben Johnson is offensive coordinator and coach. The Eagles and the Lions at all when Fangio was when Ben was in Detroit and Fangio was in Philadelphia.
Yeah, because it was 2022 they played, and Fangio was a consultant at the end of the year, but that was Jonathan Gannon. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we just haven't seen how these two guys will respond to each other, and I have a feeling like they're both going to come out with something in the beginning, and then one's going to adjust, and the other's going to have to adjust beyond that, and that back and forth is going to be really fun on that side of the ball, especially just with how Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are slowly like settling in more and more, and they're attacking the middle of the field in some of those ways that the Eagles offense hasn't quite been able to just yet, but yet still, there's still little areas where he and Roman are just off a little bit here, there. He and DJ Moore are just off a little bit there, but to keep the tight end conversation rolling, Colson Loveland is kind of emerging right now as like the go-to in this Bears offense, and I'm really excited to see how he's going to work the middle of the field, especially with Andrew Makuba. Did he go on injured reserve or just have
injured reserve? Yeah, fractured ankle, so he's out. And also Adoree Jackson, their third cornerback starting outside opposite Quinyon Mitchell, concussion protocol. So the Eagles will probably be down 2 starters in their secondary. That's why I think limiting explosives against that Bears offense is going to be key. They're going to have to do it without 2 of their starters.
Yeah, and I think like we were talking about earlier, like we haven't really seen a defense fully limit the Bears from their explosive plays. Like I think Minnesota has come the closest just because when Brian Flores is blitzing the crap out of you, you don't have time to get stuff going downfield. But like, I don't expect Vic Fangio to be dialing up the blitz too much. I think I saw the Eagles blitz rate is like 30th.
They had to use it early in the year when they didn't have a 4-man rush. But yeah, since they traded for Jalen Phillips and Nolan Smith's been back, they really just rushed with 4. So yeah, I mean, that'll be an interesting part too. They've been dominant with their 4-man rush over the last month, but last week they kind of took a step back. So if Caleb Williams has time, that's going to be a big thing to watch is explosives, because I don't know, Lorin, like if you would agree with this, but I think with Williams and the Bears, it might be similar where it's kind of like the Eagles passing attack. It's a lot of explosive plays, but then there's a lot of variance there where it's inconsistent. Like the Eagles can't get those easy yards. Where has Caleb Williams been from like an efficiency perspective? Because he's had some highlight plays, it feels like every week, especially late, but how is he from like a whole 4-quarter perspective?
Yeah, I think he's 33rd in completion percentage this year. And
that's what I noticed. That's why I asked.
PFF's adjusted completion percentage, he's like 30th, right? So when you take away drops,
yeah,
I think he's 5th in drop rate, so he does have a lot of drops, but like he still misses a lot. Like when it comes to like when I started saying earlier, like with teams haven't really kept the Bears from having explosive defenses, haven't kept the Bears from having explosive plays, but the Bears' own mistakes have kept them from having explosive plays, whether it's a penalty that undoes a big pass, or I mentioned Rome Odunze has like one really critical dropped pass a game. And sometimes it's an easy drop, sometimes it's a tough drop, but like you're a top 10 pick at wide receiver, you're supposed to be the future number 1 guy in this team. Go be great. And he just isn't making those special plays that you really need to make. And Caleb is inaccurate. Like he's going to overthrow a couple of receivers. He's going to put too far in front on a couple of receivers. There's going to be 5 or 7 passes in this game that the guy is open. Caleb reads it correctly. He's on time, at least in his release, but then the ball doesn't go exactly where it's supposed to, and it's not a catchable pass. It's like that should have been or could have been an explosive play. The guy's open, but it was more the miscue from the offense preventing it than like, oh, great defensive coverage broke up that otherwise explosive play. And I should say too, like the explosive plays have not been the 80-yard breakaway touchdown. They're consistently getting the 20 to 25-yard chunks, but it's not the 50 to 60-yard chunks. It's like
I feel like it's kind of Caleb like rolling to the right, escaping pressure, finding DJ Moore over the middle of the field, working on a route. So that's something to watch. I think that's another key is like Caleb Williams is good outside of structure, keeping him inside the pocket. I think that'll be a big thing. One other matchup I'm watching, Lorin, real quick. Jordan Mailata against Montez Sweat. Jordan Mailata has been uncharacteristically inconsistent this season. Sweat already has, 7.5 sacks on the year. That's a big thing, too, because Jalen Hurts was under pressure. Talk about like Caleb Williams having to be on the run. Jalen was on the move a lot against Dallas.
I will say Montez Sweat has been a little bit boom or bust as well. Like the sack numbers are back up, and the pressure numbers are not bad, but I think generally he's been viewed as a little bit of a disappointment this season, like because like he'll have like a sack a game, and that one play is like, hey, there's Montez Sweat, and the rest of the game you're not really seeing or hearing a lot from him. And I'll say too, he's been rushing even more so primarily on the left side of the defense against right tackles. They'll move him around back and forth, but he's mostly been working against right tackles.
Well, that's even more notable because Lane Johnson will not be playing in this game.
And so I think they're going to like that matchup against presumably Fred Johnson.
Fred Johnson, yep. He'll play.
Not beloved in Jacksonville, I recall.
No, he was not. I thought he was okay last week. Took a bad penalty in the fourth quarter, but definitely no Lane Johnson. So that's something else to watch as well.
The Bears pass rush is bad. It's really bad. It's the biggest weakness on this team. So I wouldn't be worried overall about a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts. Dennistown has to go to the blitz to get really the pressure that he wants out of the dime package. So down to down, Jalen Hurts is going to have time. In key passing situations, pressure is going to be coming, and there's not a lot of in between there.
Interesting. Keys to victory coming up next. Eagles-Bears, a big-time matchup. Two teams trying to get a top 2 seed in the NFC. Locked on Eagles, locked on Bears. It's crossover Thursday. All right, wrapping up crossover Thursday right here on Locked On Eagles, Locked On Bears, a big-time Black Friday game coming up in Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial Field. Lorin, we've talked a lot about matchups, like the big keys in this game, how similar these two football teams are, like the pros and cons of what's gotten them to 8-3, but it's also what's maybe holding them back from being maybe on the Rams level right now. I think LA they seem like the most consistent football team in this conference, but both these teams are only a game back. Like the 1 seed is very realistic, and a top 2 seed with the home field advantage both of these teams have, I think is really important because going to LA, I don't think is like a really tough place to play, but going to Soldier Field in January or going to the Link, like that's tough. So this game's huge.
Yeah, and it's funny that when you talk about that, like Bears fans are not even in that.
Are you not thinking that way at all? Winning the division, huh?
No one's thinking number 1 seed or even a home playoff game. Like it's like if the Bears win the division, they will be floored and super, super happy.
See, that's what I thought about Chicago, but then I turn around and look at the standings, and they're right there. If they beat the Eagles, I mean, they're the 2 seed.
100%. And it's
crazy.
Even Bears fans just like don't fully buy it. Like there are 6 games left of the season, and like if the Bears can go 3-3 in these 6 games, people would be thrilled, which still puts you at 11 wins, and that's but like when you're 9-1 your last game and 8-1 your last 9 games, and now 3-3 over your final 6 would feel like a big drop off. And it's like, no, these teams are getting good. Like Bears fans aren't expecting to beat the Eagles. This would be like extra cherry on top from a fun season. But like if they lose, it's like, oh yeah, we were supposed to lose that game. No worries.
That's one funny thing about these fan bases. They're definitely self-aware and I would say pessimistic in a natural sense. For sure. So, yeah, but it's a big one. Lorin, if you had to say like 3 keys to victory for the Chicago Bears, like if they pull off this will be a big time upset. Because like you said, they've beaten a lot of like okay teams this year, close. If this would be a statement win on national TV to jump the Birds, get a top 2 seed as of right now, what are the keys for Chicago to win this game?
Yeah, I mean, the Bears are 7-point underdogs on FanDuel right now.
Yeah, that's a big number. I was surprised by that.
It's the biggest spread they've had since they lost to the Ravens, a month or 2 ago. So like Vegas sees some separation here, but I think for Chicago, like the 3 keys kind of fall under this same category, and it runs with the theme that we've been talking about. Like I haven't really seen, maybe the Ravens did a little bit, but like I haven't really seen a team truly like beat the Bears overwhelmingly. Like the Bears are beating themselves. And so like the key is to not beat themselves. And I think there's like three things underneath that, right? It's avoiding the penalties and like the self-inflicted wounds of drop passes, inaccurate throws and penalties. And then it's being able to run the ball and control the clock and stick with the running game, even if it's a little bit slow here and there, like being able to just say, hey, it's worth pushing through. If we're getting only 2 or 3 yards, like you run that 4 times, you can still get a first down. There's some different angles to that. And then it's probably from defensive standpoint, like you got to just keep everything in front of you with this Eagles team. Like don't let them get behind you. Don't have the coverage bust or the mistake on the back end where you're one-on-one and then you you miss your tackle and then he's just breaking free down the sideline. Like you've been relying on turnovers heavily, and that's worked. And I just don't know that you can get it this game. So you just have to limit then the mistakes, because the turnovers have been able to make up for mistakes in previous games. But if you don't have the mistakes, then you won't need to make up for them and won't need to rely on the turnovers to kind of get you through.
How banged up is this Bears defense? I mean, it looked like the report was pretty thick on Wednesday.
Yeah, it's mostly the defense or the linebackers right now. They're optimistic about the secondary being pretty close to fully healthy. CJ Gardner-Johnson said out loud that Jalen Johnson's playing on Friday. Like, they haven't.
Classic CJ. Eagles fans can attest to that.
But the interesting thing would be, like, if Kyler Gordon indeed plays, there's some expectation that he also could come off of injured reserve. Then it's like, where do they play CJ Gardner-Johnson? Does he probably becomes like the slot, the dime safety, third safety sort of package? But the injuries are all at linebacker, and then they're missing one of their defensive ends who's on injured reserve, Dio Odengbo. But like, for the most part, they should be pretty healthy as they've been at corner, and pretty healthy on the defensive line. And that's mostly the areas of concern right now. It's just 3 backup linebackers potentially out there.
Yeah, for the Eagles, it's in the secondary, Dory Jackson, Andrew McCuber. They're going to be out at safety and cornerback. Devontae Smith, status is up in the air. I would predict he doesn't play. We'll see what happens. But that's why one of my keys to victory is just don't turn the ball over on the offensive side of the football. Like you said, I mean, there's a lot of things the Bears do give up on that side. They've been very opportunistic. Don't give them the opportunity to flip the field. Again, I've kind of been on Jalen Hurts. My listeners and viewers know that I've wanted him to be more aggressive this year and take more chances. The Eagles have led the league in 3-and-outs the majority of the season, and some of that's by design, which I can't stand. But in this game, I feel like they should lean into that identity, especially if Devontae Smith is not playing. So to me, that's a key to this victory, especially if the game's close in the fourth quarter. Don't turn the ball over. Find some sort of consistency on offense. I mean, the passing game's been so up and down. The run game's been non-existent. If you put together a 4-quarter performance, I feel like you should beat this Bears team convincingly, and then limit Chicago from getting explosive plays. Like, that's where I think they've made their money on the offensive side of the football. So overall, I think, Lorin, you could probably agree that a lot of the keys for both teams are similar.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. Even though, again, like, the Bears shouldn't be on the same tier as the Eagles. Like, they could be just the next tier down, and yet there's enough similarities with all these inconsistent teams in the NFL. There are very few teams that you can sit there and say, oh, they're really good.
Yeah, who's the dominant team that right now that's on fire? It's probably the Rams, and that's probably it.
Maybe the Patriots, but I don't fully trust them either. Like, it's hard to tell.
They were weird last week against a bad team. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. That's a good point.
So so that's what makes this matchup so fun. Is like, I don't expect the Bears to win. I expect the Eagles win by, that touchdown mark seems, I feel like a 6-point victory, like I don't know, 28-21, kind of 27-21, 27-20 kind of final score feels about right to me. And yet, like, I'm not going to be stunned or surprised if the Bears win the game. And I don't think Eagles fans would be like, oh my God, we never saw this coming. I mean, but at the same time, like, Eagles should be the better team and should win the game, but so far this NFL season, the shoulds have not always played out the way they're supposed to.
No, that's why it's a great league. Eagles, Bears, Black Friday. Enjoy the game. We'll have another show for you each on Locked On Eagles, Locked On Bears on Friday. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day, including today, Crossover Thursday. For Lorin Cox of Locked On Bears, I'm Louie DiBiase of Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for tuning in, and enjoy the game.